So, picture this. It's your 18th birthday, and all you really want is something simple, just a pizza and a small cake with your best friend. But instead, your parents cancel everything, all because your brother is stressed about his exams. And that's just the beginning of a night that changes everything. I mean, can you imagine what happens next? Might just blow your mind. But before I dive in, tell me, what's your favorite way to celebrate your birthday? Let me know in the comments. It was supposed to be a simple night, right? My 18th birthday, just me, my best friend Chloe, a cheap pizza, and a tiny cake. Nothing big, nothing fancy. But, of course, that wasn't how it went. My mom, Diane, knocked on my door, but she didn't wait for me to answer. She just walked in like she always did. And I could tell right away something was off. The look on her face, that mix of forced calm and irritation, it was like a warning bell. She didn't even give me a chance to process what she said. "Alara, we need to talk about tomorrow." She sighed, the kind of sigh that says, "This is a burden," and then dropped the bomb. "We're gonna have to cancel your get-together." Cancel it seriously. It was just Chloe. Just one pizza. But no, my brother Leo had a huge exam on Monday. And apparently, that made my 18th birthday nothing more than an inconvenience. I couldn't even argue with her. Leo was always the priority. It didn't matter that I had a final exam of my own, or that this was the one day of the year that was supposed to be about me. No, Leo's future was far more important than anything in my life. And somehow, I was always the one expected to understand that. I tried to stand up for myself, but it was like talking to a wall. "It's just pizza, Mom," I said, hoping she might see reason. "It's not going to bother Leo. It's not like we're throwing a party." But she just shrugged it off, like my feelings didn't matter. "Leo has a lot of stress right now, and honestly, having anyone over is too distracting." The excuse was ridiculous. Our house wasn't small, and my room was on the complete opposite side of the house from Leo's. He blasted his video games at full volume, never once worrying about how it affected me, but somehow, the sound of me and Chloe having a slice of pizza in the kitchen was going to ruin his focus. Yeah, right. And when I tried to push back, my mom snapped at me. "Don't take that tone, Alara. Your brother's future is important," as if mine wasn't. I tried to argue. "My calculus final isn't important." But, of course, she didn't want to hear it. "That's different," and she said, "Leo needs to focus on his business degree." Again, it was always about Leo, his degree, his future, his needs. It didn't matter that I was trying to build my own future, that I was working my butt off to get a scholarship, that I had dreams too. No, those dreams didn't matter. All that mattered was Leo. "You can always have a party some other time," she said, dismissing me with that finality that said, "You're not worth the effort." And when I finally couldn't take it anymore, when I told her it wasn't a party, but a simple celebration, she called me dramatic. "You're not a child, Alara," she said, as if I was overreacting for wanting something that was mine. But I wasn't asking for much. Just one day, one small moment that could be about me, but no. It was always about Leo. It was always about the golden child. And I couldn't help but feel this deep, bitter resentment build up inside of me. I wasn't even upset anymore. I was just numb. After she left, I went downstairs, hoping maybe my dad would be different, but of course, he wasn't. He was sitting in his armchair, reading the paper, like he always did when there was drama. Leo was sprawled on the couch, his eyes glued to the TV, not a care in the world. "Did you know about this?" I asked my dad, trying to get some kind of support, some kind of acknowledgement that I mattered. But my dad just rustled his paper and mumbled, "Your mom knows best. Alara, Leo needs to study. Don't make a fuss. Don't make a fuss." That's the other mantra in this house. Don't make a fuss. Don't rock the boat. Just let Leo do whatever he wants. And when Leo finally chimed in, smirking at me, it was like a slap in the face. He laughed, short and harsh. What's the problem? Alara upset you can't have your little kid party. My voice was shaking as I tried to defend myself. It's just pizza. Leo, it wouldn't have bothered you. He didn't care. He just laughed again. Cruelly. Everything you do bothers me. You're always acting like you're so much smarter than everyone. That was the thing. No one ever saw me. Not really. Not like they saw Leo. He could do whatever he wanted, get away with whatever he wanted. I was just the backdrop, the quiet, smart kid who was supposed to sit in the corner and make no waves. And that night, with Leo's smirk and my parents' silence, I realized something. I wasn't just invisible. I was an inconvenience. I was just something that was there, in the way of Leo's perfect, shiny world. And that was the moment it hit me. My family had made it clear. I wasn't wanted. I wasn't important. I wasn't even part of the picture. I looked at my mom, busy wiping down an already clean counter, and then at my dad, who was still hiding behind his paper. Leo's words kept echoing in my head. Just leave. And they were all saying it, in their own way. My mom, my dad, Leo, they were all telling me I didn't matter. They were telling me that my life was just nothing, just a small, unnecessary thing. And in that moment, I made a decision. I wasn't going to be a part of their world anymore. I was done. So I stood up, I walked out of my room, and for the first time in years, I didn't look back. I went downstairs, grabbed those stupid candles, and just walked right out the door. No more making myself small, no more being quiet. I was done. That was it. The moment that everything changed, my brother, Leo, who had always been the center of this family's universe, the golden child, the one who could do no wrong, he had crossed a line. He wasn't just making fun of me. He wasn't just being his usual arrogant self. No, this time it was different. This time, he told me to leave. Just leave. Those words, they echoed in my head like a terrible, cruel mantra. And you know what? It was the first time in my life I realized he was right. I could leave. I didn't have to stay in that house. I didn't have to keep being the one who disappeared into the background, the one who was always quiet and unnoticed, always second to Leo's needs. He told me to leave, and that's exactly what I did. But here's the thing, when I left, it wasn't just about walking out of a room or stepping out of a door. It was about walking away from a family who had made it clear over and over that I didn't matter. I wasn't worth the effort. I wasn't important. And when I realized that, something inside me snapped. It didn't break me, though it set me free. It was like I'd been carrying this heavy weight all my life. And in that moment, I put it down. My hands were shaking as I grabbed those tiny, glittering birthday candles, the ones that were supposed to symbolize a special day. But instead, all they symbolized was how little anyone cared about me. It was stupid, really, to be so attached to those cheap candles, to something so insignificant. But in that moment, they felt like the world. They were all I had. A pathetic reminder of how the one day of the year that was supposed to be mine had been taken away from me. I stood there, staring at them in my hand, feeling like I was staring at my entire life. And then I thought about my parents, my mom, busy cleaning, pretending nothing was wrong. My dad, hiding behind his paper, never once standing up for me. Leo, of course, was just the same. The smug, entitled golden child who could do no wrong, who could get away with murder and still be adored by everyone. It wasn't fair. It wasn't right. And I was so tired of it. Tired of being invisible. Tired of being second place. Tired of always being the one who was overlooked and ignored. So I walked out of my room, I didn't ask for permission. I didn't wait for anyone to tell me it was okay. I just walked out, and I didn't look back. My heart was racing as I went downstairs. It felt like my legs were moving on their own, like I was just a passenger in my own body. I went straight to the living room where my dad was still sitting in his chair, reading his paper like nothing had changed. Leo was still sprawled on the couch, his eyes glued to the TV, his controller in hand. He looked up for a second, just enough to smirk at me. "What, Alara, you upset about your little pizza party?" His words were dripping with that same smug superiority, but they didn't hurt anymore. They didn't break me like they always had. Because in that moment, I realized something. He didn't have control over me anymore, not in the way he used to. I was done being his punching bag, done being his little sister. I looked at my dad, who barely even acknowledged me, and I looked at Leo, who was still sitting there, acting like I was just some annoying presence in his life. And I knew, right then, that I was done with all of them. I wasn't going to keep trying to fit into a family that didn't want me. So I turned, and I walked back up the stairs. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. They all knew what was happening. They knew what was coming, and so did I. I went into my room, and I locked the door behind me. I stood there for a moment, just breathing. I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel angry. I just felt numb. It was like I was watching myself from the outside, like I wasn't even a part of this family anymore. But as I looked around, something clicked inside me. I was free. I didn't need them. I never did. I had always known that I was capable of more, but I hadn't let myself believe it, not until that moment. So I packed, slowly at first, then faster as I realized what I was doing. My hands were still shaking, but this time, it wasn't out of fear. It was out of determination. I started with my clothes, the ones that mattered to me, the ones I had bought with my own money, not the ones my mom had picked out for me, not the ones she had criticized for being too plain or too cheap. No, I was packing the things that were mine, the things that made me who I was. I didn't pack the things that had been forced on me. I grabbed my best jeans, the sweaters I had worked for, the shoes I'd saved up to buy. It felt strange at first, but then it felt right. These were the things that were part of the life I had built for myself, the life I wanted. I didn't want to be a part of their world anymore. I wanted to create my own. I moved on to the next thing, my laptop. It was my lifeline. It wasn't just a computer, it was my future. It held everything that was important to me, my scholarships, my plans, my dreams. I couldn't leave that behind. So I packed it, and then my textbooks. They were heavy, but they were mine. I'd worked hard for them. I wasn't going to leave that behind either. These were the things that made me who I was. These were the things that mattered. I even grabbed the little box of makeup I'd secretly bought, just for me. It wasn't much, but it was mine. It was something I had chosen for myself. It wasn't a hand-me-down from my mother or a gift I'd gotten because Leo got something better. No, it was mine, and that felt like freedom. As I was packing, I went to the floorboard under my rug. It was a place I'd hidden things for years, things my family didn't know about. I lifted the board and pulled out the tin box. I had hidden it there when I was younger, thinking it was a secret they would never find. Inside, I found the passbook to my bank account, the one my parents didn't know about, the one Nana Rose had left me. She had always seen me. She had always known that I was more than they gave me credit for. And she had left me something $10,000. It wasn't much compared to what Leo had, but it was mine, and it was enough. Along with it was the letter she had written to me. I read it again, even though I knew it by heart. Don't let them dim your light, Alara. Build something for yourself. Don't look back. Her words were like a lifeline, and they gave me the strength to keep going, to leave, to take what was mine and never look back. I folded the letter carefully and placed it back in the tin. Then, I took my passport and birth certificate and slid them into my bag. These were the last pieces of my old life, the things that tied me to that family, to that house. But I didn't need them anymore. I didn't need them to tell me who I was. I had already figured that out. And so, with my duffel bag packed, I stood there for a moment, looking around my room. It was empty now. All the things that had once defined me, things my parents had bought, things I had been forced to live with, were gone. And I felt free. This was it. The moment I had been waiting for. The moment I took control of my life. I was leaving. I didn't have a plan, but I didn't need one. I had everything I needed inside me, and that was all I needed. When I left, I didn't have much, but I had everything I needed. That scholarship, it was my ticket out. I had worked for it, quietly, tirelessly. While my brother Leo was busy making sure the world revolved around him, I was working behind the scenes, building something of my own. And that scholarship wasn't just a piece of paper, it was my escape. It was a future I had carved out for myself, even when no one believed in me. It had always been there, like a lifeline. It was the proof that I could do this. I could succeed on my own terms. But it wasn't just the scholarship. Nana Rosa's gift. Her final act of kindness was the key that unlocked my freedom. Her little tin box, tucked away under the floorboard in my room, contained more than just money. It was the validation I had been longing for. The push I needed to stop believing that my worth was tied to a family that didn't care about me. $10,000. That was Nana Rosa's gift. It wasn't a fortune, but it was enough to get me started. I used it wisely, living carefully. Every penny mattered, because I knew this was it. This was my chance. I couldn't mess this up. I moved to a new city, a new life, and even though it was terrifying, there was something exhilarating about it. I checked into my dorm room, a small, bare space with cinder block walls. It wasn't much, but it was mine. The bed was squeaky, the desk was old, but it didn't matter. It felt like freedom. I had my scholarship to cover my tuition and my dorm, but Nana's money was for the rest, for the food I'd eat, for the things I would need to survive. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. I lived off instant noodles and the library's coffee. It wasn't easy, but it was mine. I had done this, I had built this, and every day, as I sat in my little dorm room and studied, as I worked on my assignments for my computer science classes, I knew that I was building something bigger. I was making my dreams come true, quietly and steadily, one step at a time. But the most important thing was that I wasn't doing it alone. I had found work, a secret job that no one knew about. I didn't tell anyone back home. My parents, my brother, they didn't need to know. I had told them I was volunteering at the local community center, helping old people with computers. They loved that. It sounded good. It made me seem like I was doing something selfless, something to make them proud. But that wasn't where I was. I was at a small local web development company, building websites and coding in the back office. I had built a portfolio, quietly, in the evenings after school. I had taught myself, reading books, watching tutorials, and practicing until I got good, really good. And one day, I walked into the small office of a woman named Sarah. I showed her my work, and she didn't hesitate. "You're better than my last 2 college interns," she said, offering me a part-time job right there on the spot. It was my secret, my lifeline. Every Friday, I was paid in cash, which I dutifully deposited into my hidden account. It was a job no one knew about, but it was mine. It was my way of making sure I could support myself without asking anyone for help. And every day, as I worked, I realized how much more I was capable of than I had ever been allowed to believe. My family had always treated me like I was the sidekick in Leo's life. I was the extra, the one who was supposed to blend into the background and make sure he had what he needed. But here, in this new life, I was the one in control. I was the one building my future, brick by brick, making choices that were mine and mine alone. I kept to myself. I didn't want anyone back home to know I was doing well. I didn't want their pity, their apologies. I didn't need them. Not anymore. I was doing this on my own. And with each passing day, I could feel the distance between me and the family I had left behind growing wider. I wasn't just surviving in this new world, I was thriving. I had a job, I had a scholarship, and I was succeeding in my classes. Computer science made sense to me in a way that nothing else ever had. It was logical, structured. If you wrote the right code, you got the right result. It was simple, in a way. And for the first time, I felt like I belonged, like I was meant to be here in this new world, not in the shadow of my brother or my parents' expectations. This was my world, and I was going to make it work. I stayed focused. I knew there were people back home who would look at my success and try to tear it down. My mother, who would always find a way to minimize anything I accomplished. My father, who would pretend he didn't see me while I worked twice as hard as Leo to get even half the recognition. But I didn't care. I had built this life for myself. I didn't need their approval anymore. I had my own. And then came the first email. It was from my mother. The subject line read, "Your little tantrum," and that's exactly what she called it, my leaving us, my escape. She called it a tantrum. "Alara, this has gone on long enough. You've made your point. You've embarrassed us all. Your father is very upset. You need to call us immediately and tell us when you're coming home." I deleted it without a second thought. There was nothing left to say to them. I had made my decision. I wasn't going back. A week later, there was another email, this time from my father. "Please, Alara, your mother is worried sick. This isn't like you. We can talk about this. Whatever job you think you have, it's not a future. Your mother, she's not well. Her health is fragile." They were trying to manipulate me, trying to guilt me back into their world, but I wasn't buying it. I had heard it all before. The same tired excuses, the same worn-out tactics. I knew better now. I was not their scapegoat anymore. I was no longer the person who existed just to make them feel better. I had become the person I was meant to be, without their interference. I deleted that email too. And then the calls started. My mom found a way to get my dorm phone number, which I had never given to them. I answered it, my heart racing in my chest. "Alara, is that you?" she asked, her voice trembling. It was like she had found a way to crack my armor, but it didn't work. I was still steady. "How did you call me?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. "We called the university. We told them it was a family emergency. Alara, you need to come home. This is not right. We're your family." She wasn't giving up, but I wasn't the same person she used to control. I didn't need her or her emotional manipulation. "I have to study," I said flatly. "You're failing, aren't you?" she asked, switching from worried to accusing in an instant. "You're too proud to admit it. You've wasted your grandmother's money, haven't you?" "I'm on the dean's list. Mom," I said, my voice calm. "I have a 4.0 and I haven't touched Nana's money. I have a job. I'm supporting myself." The silence on the other end was deafening. They hadn't expected that. They hadn't expected me to do it. To actually succeed on my own. "A 4, she repeated, as if the concept of success without their help was offensive. Well, isn't that nice? While you're off playing at being a genius, your brother is struggling. He might fail his exams, all because of you. The audacity. the complete lack of self-awareness. Because of me, I was incredulous. You upset the family balance, you left, and it's put everyone under so much stress, she went on. But I didn't listen anymore. I hung up. I didn't need them to tell me who I was. I already knew. I already knew that I was enough, that I had made it without them, and I was going to keep going. And with that, I sealed my future. The old life was gone. But this new one, this one was mine. This one was the one I had built for myself. And no one could take that away. The first few months after I left were peaceful. Or, at least, they were supposed to be. I had finally found my footing, settled into my new life. I had everything I needed, and I didn't look back. But then, the emails started. At first, it was just my mom. A message laced with guilt. A thinly veiled attempt to make me feel like I had done something wrong. She called it a tantrum. Her words were designed to make me feel like I was overreacting, like leaving wasn't justified. She kept saying how upset my dad was, how much I was embarrassing them. But honestly, the more I read them, the more I realized how little they understood. They hadn't even tried to understand me when I was there. I was never more than an afterthought, a background character in the story of Leo. And now they wanted to bring me back into the fold, to pretend like everything was fine. I wasn't having it. I deleted her email without responding. A few days later, my dad tried his hand at it. The subject line read, "Please, Alara." He couldn't even say my name without turning it into something pitiful, something that made him sound like he was begging. The message was full of empty reassurances. Of course, he said they could talk about it. But I knew better. His silence had always been his way of enabling my mother, of letting Leo walk all over me. His words didn't mean anything. They never had. He had never been there for me, not in the way I needed. And then came the one that shook me the most. A few weeks into my first semester, I got a call. I didn't recognize the number, but I answered anyway. I should have known who it was, but still, when I heard Leo's voice on the other end, it made my stomach drop. Alara. His voice was different. It was like he was trying to sound casual, trying to play it cool, but there was something underneath that made it clear he wasn't just calling to check in. It was more than that. It was that same sense of entitlement, like my life was supposed to be a part of his, like I owed him something. "I know you're in there," he said, his voice dripping with that familiar smugness. "You can't hide forever." I didn't know what he was expecting me to say. I didn't know why he even bothered trying to get through to me. I had made it clear that I wasn't coming back, that I was done with all of them. But Leo didn't get it. He didn't care to understand. "I'm not hiding, Leo," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm living my life. It's a life I built for myself. You should try it sometime." I could hear him snort on the other end. "What? You think you're better than me now?" His words were sharp, laced with anger. "I've seen your little success story, Alara. You think you can just run off and pretend like you're better than us?" He was bitter. That much was clear. But there was something deeper, something darker in his voice that bothered me even more. He wasn't just angry that I had left. He was angry that I had found success, my scholarship, my job. And it made him furious, like he didn't see it as something I had earned. He saw it as something that was meant to be his, something that had been stolen from him. That was the thing with Leo. He had always believed that everything in our lives was supposed to revolve around him. It wasn't just the birthday parties or the family attention. It was everything. He thought that I was just supposed to stay in the background and make sure his life was easy, that I was supposed to be his supporting character. He wasn't used to seeing me as anything more. And here I was, living a life he could never understand, a life that wasn't about him, and it made him furious. "You don't get it," I said, my voice trembling slightly, but I steadied myself. "This isn't about you. I didn't leave to take anything from you. I left because I wasn't going to be the shadow anymore. I'm not your sidekick." I didn't expect him to understand. I didn't think he ever would. But for some reason, I said it anyway. "I built this life for myself, Leo, and you can't just come in and take it from me." He went silent for a second, and then I heard him breathe out, that same sound he always made when he didn't know what to say. It was always his way of pretending to be unbothered, pretending like nothing could ever get to him. But it did. It always did. He wasn't unbothered. He was just angry. Angry that I had succeeded when he hadn't. "You're so selfish," he spat. "I don't need your pity. I don't need you to lecture me about my life." But it wasn't pity I was offering. It was the truth. And he didn't want to hear it. He didn't want to acknowledge that he had wasted everything, that my success wasn't a theft. It was a result of hard work. My hard work. He wanted to twist it to make it seem like I owed him something, like I had done something wrong. "You think you're better than everyone, Alara," he said, his words sharp, but this time they didn't sting. "You left and took everything I was supposed to have." I didn't know whether to laugh or feel sorry for him. It wasn't my success that bothered him. It was the fact that I had broken free of the cage he'd put me in, the cage our parents had built for me. And when I realized that, when I saw it for what it was, I knew I couldn't keep letting him try to pull me back. I couldn't keep allowing him to make me feel guilty for having a life that was mine. "You didn't deserve any of it, Leo," I said, my voice steady now. "I worked for it. I earned every single thing, and you didn't take it from me. I gave it to myself. So if you're angry about that, then maybe you should take a long look at the way you've been living your life." He went quiet again, and I knew I had hit a nerve, but I didn't care. I was done. "Don't call me again," I said firmly. "I'm done. I don't owe you anything." He started to say something, but I hung up before he could get another word in. I didn't need to hear it anymore. I didn't need to be caught in his cycle of guilt and manipulation. I was done being his scapegoat. I had found my worth, and no one, not Leo, not my parents, not anyone, could take that away from me. The calls stopped after that, at least for a while. But I wasn't waiting for them to stop. I wasn't holding my breath for them to finally get it. They never would. I had built my own life, and I wasn't going back. I wasn't going to let anyone make me feel small again. It was a hard realization, but it was the truth. I wasn't their responsibility. I wasn't their burden. I was just me. And that was enough. It was a Tuesday night when he showed up, exactly 1 year and a week since I had walked out. 1 year since I'd taken control of my life. I was in my small apartment, the one I'd worked so hard for, sitting at my desk, focused on a C++ algorithm for my finals. The place was quiet, peaceful, just the way I liked it. I was alone, just like I wanted to be. And then, a loud, frantic pounding on the door broke the silence. It wasn't a normal knock. It was angry, desperate, and something about it made my heart skip a beat. I wasn't expecting anyone. I walked to the door, my mind racing, but I already knew who it was. I looked through the peephole. Leo. He looked different. The Leo I remembered was always polished, always put together. But this guy at my door was a mess. He was wearing a wrinkled sweatshirt from his university, the one I knew my parents had bought for him, and his hair was greasy and unkempt. His face was blotchy, eyes wide with what I could only describe as panic. He looked like someone who had just realized the life they thought they deserved was slipping through their fingers. His eyes locked with mine through the peephole, and for a moment, he stopped knocking. He knew I was there. He knew I could see him. I took a deep breath, and then I opened the door. Just a crack, careful not to let him push his way in. "Alara," he said, his voice rough. "I know you're in there. I can see the lights. Open the door." There was something in his voice, a mix of fear, desperation, and entitlement. He was expecting me to let him in. He was expecting me to be the same person I was when I left, the one who would drop everything to make him feel better. But I wasn't that person anymore. "Leo, go away," I said, my voice calm, but with an edge. "I'm not interested in whatever it is you're trying to sell." He didn't back down. He shoved his hand against the door, trying to force it open. "Open the door, Alara, or I'll kick it in," he threatened, his words slurred with anger. I stepped back, not afraid but resolute. I wasn't going to let him intimidate me. Not anymore. Not after everything I had worked for. I wasn't the scared little sister anymore. I wasn't the one who would quietly fade into the background just to make him feel big. I opened the door wider, just enough for him to see into the apartment. I crossed my arms, staring at him, waiting for him to speak. His eyes darted around the room, taking in the tiny, neat space, my space. "Wow," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "How did you get all this?" He looked at my desk, my books, my framed photos of me and Chloe laughing. He looked at the small kitchen and the simple couch where I spent my evenings studying. "This is mine," I said simply, meeting his gaze. "I earned it." Leo scoffed, his face contorting into something ugly. "You think you're so special now, huh?" He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You think you're better than me." I didn't flinch. I didn't flinch because for the first time, I realized something. He wasn't just angry. He was scared. He was scared that my success, my independence, meant he had to face the reality of his own failures. He wasn't looking at me as a person who had worked hard for everything they had. He was looking at me as a reminder of everything he had thrown away. "You think you deserve this, Alara," he said, his voice getting louder, more frantic. "This life, this success, it was meant for me. It was supposed to be mine." There it was. That was the crux of it. He didn't see my success as something I had earned. He saw it as something that belonged to him by birthright. He didn't understand that I had worked for it, that every step I had taken was because I had fought for it. He had always believed that everything was supposed to be handed to him, that he was the one who deserved it all. And now that he saw I was living the life he thought he was entitled to, it was too much for him to handle. His words hit me like a slap, but not in the way they used to. They didn't sting anymore. They didn't hold power over me. "You don't get it, Leo," I said, my voice steady now, as calm as it had ever been. "You didn't earn this. I earned it." He shook his head, tears threatening to spill over. "You took it from me," he said, his voice breaking. "You ran away and took the life that was supposed to be mine." His words were soaked in a twisted kind of grief. But it wasn't my grief. It was his. He wasn't crying for me. He was crying because, for the first time in his life, he realized that the world didn't revolve around him, that his failures weren't my fault, that I had made something of myself, and he hadn't. "You didn't deserve it," I said firmly. "You think you have the right to everything because you're the oldest? You think you deserve success just because you've always been the golden child? But you've wasted it. Leo, you threw it all away." I saw him flinch at my words, but I didn't stop. I wasn't going to stop. "I didn't take anything from you," I continued, my voice growing colder. "I didn't steal your life. I just built my own. And you've been too busy blaming me for everything to see it." Leo was shaking now, tears mixing with the anger in his eyes. "You're just going to watch me fail, aren't you?" He spat. His eyes were full of rage. But there was something else there too. Something I couldn't quite place. "I'm not going to watch you fail," I said, my voice unwavering. "You're going to fail because you didn't take responsibility for your own life. You're going to fail because you thought everyone else should take care of you. But I'm not going to be a part of that anymore." He stepped back, as if my words had physically knocked him away. He was defeated. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't the one who was defeated. "You need to leave, Leo," I said, my voice calm but firm. I was done. I was done being his punching bag. I was done being the one who was expected to make his life easier. I was done with the guilt and the manipulation. "Leave," I repeated, taking a step toward him. He didn't move. He didn't know what to do anymore. He was lost, and I wasn't going to save him. He had to save himself. "You were right, Leo," I said, looking him in the eye. "You told me to leave, and I did. I left, and I built a life where I am wanted, where I am valued. I'm not your safety net anymore." I stood there, watching him, waiting for him to leave, and finally, after what seemed like an eternity, he turned around, his shoulders slumped. He didn't look back. I closed the door quietly behind him, locked it, and leaned against it. My heart was pounding, but there was no fear, no regret, just a quiet, steady sense of victory. I had made it, and now I could finally move forward. I didn't need Leo. I didn't need my parents. I didn't need anyone to define me. I was free. Alara's journey wasn't easy. It wasn't a straight path, and it definitely wasn't perfect. But in the end, she found something far more valuable than all the approval she had been chasing her whole life. She found herself. She found her worth, not through the eyes of her family, but through her own strength, her own determination. She built a life where she was in control, where her future wasn't determined by anyone but herself. It's a journey we all can relate to, learning that sometimes, in order to find freedom, we have to let go of the things that hold us back, even if it means walking away from everything we've known. So, if you've ever felt like you weren't enough, or like your dreams were just out of reach, remember Alara's story. You have the power to build your own life, just like she did. And hey, if you enjoyed this story, give us a like, subscribe, and drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts and how you've built your own path to independence. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see ya next time.